How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about what things you should be doing when you're 2 months away from the upcoming GAMSAT. Let's jump straight into it. The number one thing that you need to keep in mind when you only have about 2 months till the GAMSAT is that even that is enough time for you to get a significant improvement in your scores. A lot of the times I've seen students think 2 months, not enough time. People usually study for 6 months or something, so I might as well not worry about the GAMSAT and focus on the next one. That's a big myth. Usually students do study for 3 months and get it done. So if you've got 2 months, yeah, it's less than 3 months, but the point is you want to improve in those 2 months, and whatever you improve is improvement regardless. So 2 months, in my opinion, is definitely enough time for you to go from point A, where you have an average GAMSAT score, to point B, where you actually have a competitive GAMSAT score that could land you an interview. Okay, what I want to say that from this point onwards, when you have 2 months left, time is obviously of the essence for the GAMSAT, and learning a lot of theory right now would be considered extremely low yield. So learning a bunch of theory is obviously low yield in general for this logical reasoning based test, but especially now when you're 2 months out, you don't want to be pulling out any textbooks at all. It should really be focused GAMSAT study sprints for section 1, section 3, and for section 2 it should be writing regular discipline essays. So theory, extremely low yield from this point onwards. The thing I would say is when you are doing these sprints, say you come across a type of theory that you are constantly struggling with. For example, could be circular motion. You get a bunch of physics questions on circular motion, and then you realize, okay, circular motion is something that I'm clearly struggling with, and then you can retrospectively go back and watch a video on it. But from this point onwards, everything theory related should be due to a problem that has risen. It shouldn't be something like, okay, let's start from scratch, let's do theory first, then sprint, then mocks. No, let's just jump into sprints, let's move back to theory if needed. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is timing. Everything from now needs to be timed, right? We don't want to be doing things, giving us as much time as possible, seeing if we get it right, etc. Anymore. I think those are experiments that made sense to do when you're 3 to 4 months out. Right now, what we want to do is start conditioning our brain, even our body in general, to deal with this fatigue of getting questions done in a given amount of time. So everything from this point onwards should be timed sprints. What's that going to let you know is, one, which reasoning skills do you struggle with in timed conditions, because if you don't give yourself a time limit, I feel like that list of skills that you're good at versus bad at could be very different to if you're doing a test with a lot of time. So focus now on doing sprints of each reasoning type. For section 3, it could be a mathematical reasoning sprint, a spatial reasoning sprint, but everything needs to be timed, and then still log those questions onto however you're tracking which questions you're getting right or wrong. A thing that I do want to point out though is when you're timing yourselves, don't time yourself like per stem. So when I'm talking about a stem, I'm talking about, you're given a stimuli and then there's 4 or 5 questions. So altogether that's considered a stem. So what I'm saying is when you're timing yourself, don't time yourself like per stem or per question. Time yourself like per a bunch of stems, like in the GAMSAT. You won't be spending equal amount of time per question. What that's also going to allow you to do is run this experiment that I think is pretty high yield to run at this point onwards. I call this a time versus accuracy experiment. So say you're doing 10 stems. So 10 stems, 4 questions each. That's a 40 question sprint you're doing, say for section 3. What I want you to do is when you're doing these questions, roughly write down next to each question how much time you've spent on it. For example, question 1, maybe you only spend 10 seconds. It was pretty easy. But the next question, you roughly spend, over 3 minutes. So write down, 3M plus or whatever. Now, why are we doing this? Now, after the mock, when you've gone through the solutions, etc., and you roughly know how many you got right, all that, basic analytic stuff. The next thing you could do as well is see if the questions that you spent, say more than 3 minutes on, for those questions, like, do you get them right more often versus the questions that you spend, less than 1 minute on? Or is it roughly the same? Or is it completely the opposite? For example, the question you spend 3 minutes plus on, you almost never get them right. Now, what that's gonna guide is on the day, what you could do is Like you can set mental cutoffs of when to stop thinking about a question. This is going to be pretty high yield in helping you achieve, highest number of questions attempted, because the more questions you attempt, the higher the chances that you will get a higher score. So for me, I knew that if I ever spent, more than 3.5 minutes on the question, I usually never get it right. So on the real test, if I know roughly I've spent over 3 minutes, I think, okay, this is pretty low yield, let's move on. There's still time for these kinds of experiments because you can easily accommodate them in your sprints. So I think this will be a pretty useful use of your time given you still have 2 months left. Now, a lot of what I said is only relevant for section 1 and 3 up till now. A lot of multiple choice question-based tips. What about section 2? What should you be doing when you're 2 months out from the GAMSAT? What should you be doing for section 2? To me, I think now's the time to not just pump out essays after essays. Now's the time to just write maybe 2 to 4 essays and plan heaps more. The other thing is every week now, because you've got about 8 weeks till the GAMSAT, every week when you're writing an essay, there should be something that you changed from last week. Whether it's the structure, whether it's the types of words you're using, or whether it's the types of contentions that you use, or maybe it's something even bigger, whether you're writing a creative versus an argumentative. If you're not tweaking these things, what's the point of you writing an essay every week, right? Because if you're not changing, you could just go into the GAMSAT now. You'll be writing the same essay. So when you're getting feedback, again, feedback is very important for section 2. When you're getting feedback from someone about how you went, tell them, okay, give me 3 actionable things that I could change next week. And then go back to them and see, okay, is this actually sounding right? Or is this actually sounding like what you thought it's gonna sound like if I made those changes? About 8 weeks. If you write 4 essays a week, that's a lot of essays, about 32 essays. Imagine changing 1 thing or 2 things every week. That's about 8 different changes, 16 different changes if you're changing for 2 different essays. That's all it is for section 2, in my opinion. Tweaking these little things, playing around with the toggles till you hit that happy medium where everyone's saying, okay, that was actually a pretty good essay. And I think when someone says, that was actually a pretty good essay, I could follow it. The contention was, not like a basic level sophistication. It was actually kind of sophisticated. I think that's all it takes to get a high 60. I did that, got a 68, jumping up from like a very low 50 in my past sits. So to me, the best thing for section 2 is write less, plan more, get feedback, change things from week to week. The other pretty high yield thing that you could do right now is plan the next 2 months out. Even if it takes 2 or 3 days where you're not studying for the GAMSAT and you're just spending time planning, do that. Fill up your calendar with sprints. Don't just fill out your calendar with things like, GAMSAT day. That makes no sense. Ideally, you would have, section 3 sprint, 9 a.m. till 12. And even better would be if you write section 3 mathematics sprint, 9 till 12, whatever. Fill it out, fill out your week, and then you have a list of things that you want to do every day. And you know that if you do these things, your GAMSAT score will improve. It just makes sense. Not only going to keep your study extremely efficient, but it's also going to be really good for your mental health, because you wake up, GAMSAT, it's such a huge syllabus, I don't even know where to start. Whereas now you're going to have, okay, I've actually planned all this out for myself. I'm just going to do the things that are on my calendar right now. You could either put it straight onto Google Calendar, or you could use a to-do list app. The one I use is Things 3. It's actually really, really good. Downside is it's actually pretty expensive. If you're looking for a cheaper option, Todoist is a good alternative as well. But get onto it. It's extremely high yield to plan things out. Okay, the final thing that I wanted to bring up was your mental health. GAMSAT is quite a draining process. I've been there, I've seen it firsthand. Although it's 2 months out and you think, why, either you've already been studying a lot and you're kind of burnt out, or you're on the complete opposite side where you haven't really started and you think, I just wasted so much time, what's wrong with me kind of thing. To both these groups, I said just chill, literally just chill. Med school is not a rat race. GAMSAT is a weird test. You really don't know how you would go, and it doesn't really correlate to how much time you've actually put into this. Forget about the end result. For now, just focus from 1 week to the next. Set yourself a set of tasks, and then as long as you do those set of tasks, be proud of yourself and just run with that. No need to think of things you've done in the past. No need to think of, what score would I get. Just trust the process. Trust that if you do these things, your scores will improve. and just go with it. Don't make the GAMSAT your entire life. Work the GAMSAT around your life. That's the number one advice that I would give to myself if I could go back and talk to myself. Alright, otherwise I hope you guys found this video useful. It's just a bunch of things that I think if I could go back and think of 2 months before my test, I would really love to stick to. If you guys have any questions about the GAMSAT, feel free to leave it in the comments or message me on Instagram. A lot of you message me on Instagram and I love chatting with you guys. If you guys like this kind of content, leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more GAMSAT videos, med school vlogs, med school tips and tricks. Otherwise, good luck with the GAMSAT. Finally, again, take care of yourself and I'll see you guys in the next video.